Hot Mike with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mike.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something. Is
Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Tuesday morning. Welcome to the We'll Find Out Today edition of Hot Mike on WDAY Extra and InForum.com on a, I would say, moderate 24th of January, a week to go in the opening month of 2023. A busy Tuesday unfolding for us already as we settle in to our studios here on this morning. Good morning, everybody. I am Dom Izzo, host of said show. Welcome to Hot Mike here on WDAY Extra, InForum.com. Ready for a busy Tuesday and the ever-moving machinery of Division I football stops for no man, which we'll get to in just a second. The Timberwolves still stink. I don't care what year it is. I don't care what deals they make. We could just say this in perpetuity, that it's just going to continually happen. I actually devoted time last night. I'm like, hey, you know what? This is a game they should win. And, of course, they didn't, which we'll show you in a few minutes, to a team that had lost $1 billion in a row. The Twins make another deal, which I don't know if anybody's happy about, which is typical for the Twins. I think people are still steaming over the Luis Arraez deal from Friday, which we'll get into as well. And we've got a NFL offensive lineman coming on our show later today. That's all in a nutshell what we have coming up over our 2 hours today. So all in all, I think we got a pretty solid show set up for us here over the next 2 hours. And a outstanding performance from women's basketball last night that if you missed it, shame on you because it was awesome to watch last night. The news beginning right away with our show kickoff, and that is the Bison football team has another departure, not player related, this time coach related, as ESPN's Pete Thamel reported this morning that Bison wide receivers coach Noah Pauley is leaving to join Matt Campbell's staff at Iowa State. Pauley had been here since Matt Entz took over in 2019. Came from Duluth, where he served as offensive coordinator there for 3 years, and now takes a job with Matt Campbell at Iowa State. A lot of credit for what Pauley did in his tutoring and coaching of Christian Watson to get him to the 34th overall pick in the NFL draft last year. Noah also, after last season, you'll remember, had an opportunity to go into the NFL coaching mentorship program and worked with the Green Bay Packers for about a month. So he was working with Christian Watson. That happened right after the draft. We're talking early last spring, last year. And I know, and you'll hear from him, we did, remember, during the entire season, we did interviews with each of the Bison coaching staff throughout the year, and I actually asked him about future aspirations, and we'll replay that coming up later on in the show. He's the second assistant to leave. David Braun obviously left 2 weeks ago to take the defensive coordinator job at Northwestern. Pauley going to Iowa. I mean, you're not going to, you're not hemming and hawing over this. Much like if a player is to leave and find a spot at a Power 5, if these guys are trying to move their way up, makes a ton of sense here. And hang with Matt Campbell as well, who has, they struggled last year. Iowa State certainly did, but for the majority of his tenure, they have been really good at Ames. And he knows this area well, recruits well. He has been one of the harvesters out of Florida. And I know we've talked about this, and that's a separate issue that we're going to get into later in the show on where NDSU's recruiting footprint goes with the guys that have decided to leave, because I think that's an interesting topic. But you can't deny the kinds of players that Paulie's been able to find out of the state of Florida, whether it be a Jalen Bussey, whether it be a Jaquise Alexander, who's on the roster now. Those are guys that they have gone down there and found and have contributed and believe can contribute going further. So now 2 assistant coaches for Matt Entz to work on here, and the clock is ticking on that. But on those kind, you just tip your hat and say good luck to him. And he's a great guy, and we had a chance to visit with Noah the night of the NFL draft when Christian Watson got drafted, part of our draft show, one of our favorite shows we've done. And he was just ecstatic, because he's a diehard Packer fan as well, that he was going to go play for the team that he cheers for, and got a chance to work with him, obviously, as we mentioned, in the NFL coaching mentorship program. So it's a loss. There's no doubt there. And I'll be interested to see where Matt Entz goes with this position. At a spot where, remember, the Bison bring everybody back at wide receiver. And there are some talented young players waiting to get on the field. I'm looking at you, Carson Hegerly. I'm looking at you, Mekhi Collins, 2 red shirts from this past season that were threatening to get on the football field, that likely are going to see a lot of playing time in 2023. They bring back Zach Mathis, who had a breakthrough season this past fall. A Raja Nelson, who's hoping to see the ball more. A Braylon Henderson in that particular area. Those are all guys that are hoping to see their contribution go up and continue and add in the guys that I just mentioned. That's a critical spot, especially with the success that they've had in sending now a guy to the NFL. And it's not going to happen all that often at North Dakota State, but it's a prime job, and there'll be a long list of candidates that will apply for this. So that'll be something we'll be keeping an eye on. But the Bison now with 2 openings on their staff, and we'll discuss a little bit more on this coming up later on in our show this morning. So there's the hot news to start today. Again, like we talk about, it's constant with Division I football. There is no offseason. We joke about this, we sit here, what are we, a little more than a week out from National Signing Day, the late period. So there'll be news there. The Bison, I'm sure, are gonna add a few guys, maybe through the portal as well. But the machine of it never stops. The news never stops on that. So as you might think, well, this is the lull. I would submit to you we're just as busy as we ever have been. More on that coming up later on in our show today. Now to last night's debacle in Houston. And I watched the game. I said I'm gonna devote some time to the Timberwolves, which my wife laughed at for good reason. As Wolves have played a little bit better basketball. They're playing Houston, who's god-awful. The Rockets had lost 13 in a row. I told my wife, they are purposely losing. Houston wants to lose. They want to get as many ping pong balls to win the draft lottery. And yet last night, they apparently played inspired against a malaise-covered Wolves team because they could not miss from long. Jalen Green was awesome last night. The Wolves down 4. They get an Anthony Edwards 3, cut it to 1 with 3.5 to go. But, I mean, that is too easy. That is too easy for Jalen Green to drive to the basket and score. Then he creates here. I mean, they made the Rockets look like they've won 30 games this season. They had won 10. They were 10-36 coming into last night. Green knocks down that jumper. And then how about one more for good measure because you don't get back on defense. That sealed it. The Rockets beat the Wolves 119-114, snapping a 13-game losing skid in the process. The quotes that came out after the game were so predictable. I'll just read a couple. And the one I thought really caught my eye was clearly on what Chris Finch said, the head coach of the team, and said this has been a pattern that they've seen all season. No doubt there. Okay. And they got out rebounded 64-46 last night. That's just inexcusable. You cannot lose to a team that bad. The Rockets had not won since the day after Christmas, December 26th. It's January 24th. And the Wolves, this is a great stat, are now 4-6 against the 4 worst teams in the NBA. Finch said we have the ability to beat anybody and we have the ability to lose to anybody, and that's been on display all season. That's an immature trait, and that's darn tootin', because they have wins that we thought they would certainly have, they have seen gone by the wayside. When we're talking the 4 worst teams, we're talking Detroit, which I think they got swept by the Pistons. The Hornets are 13-35. The Spurs are 14-33. We know they've struggled with them. And the Rockets, I know they've lost twice to the Rockets now. They're 11-36. Eric, I don't know if we have the Western Conference standings that we do here. This is 5 through 11. Now remember, if you're in the top 6, you're automatically in the playoffs and don't have to go to the play-in. Last night, what do they go from, Eric? 6-9 now by losing last night? 8-9. They are now in the 9 spot. Look at the teams, by the way, at 8 and 10. Those are 2 that we expected to probably play in the Western Conference Finals. Phoenix, Utah, there's Minnesota, Golden State, and then Oklahoma City is just on the outside. Remember, the Jazz got 18 players from the Wolves. They're not even supposed to be trying to win either. So as it would play out right now, Golden State would play Phoenix in the play-in, and the Wolves would play at the Jazz, is how it would stand right now. And if they were to, I got to remember how this figures out. If they win that game, I know that, but I thought it's 7 plays 10 and 8 plays 9. Okay, so 7 plays 8. Okay, 7 plays 8. So in the 9th day, so the Warriors play the Wolves, and the Wolves would host that game. And if they lose, they're done. The winner of that game would play the loser of the 7-8 game between Phoenix and Utah. Love the NBA play-in stuff. It's been 2 years. We still can't figure it out. And the Wolves, who celebrated last year like they won the NBA championship when they got to the 7th spot, this is where they're going to be at. I mean, the Clippers are 25-24, Dallas at 25-23. This is where they're going to, unless they somehow pull out a streak that they haven't been able to do yet this season, this is a graphic we're going to get familiar with here over the next 2 months, because it doesn't seem like they're going to be able to pull away from anybody. Going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. But I appreciate what Finch said after the game, because he's exactly right, that they have the ability to beat anybody, the ability to lose to anybody. It's bad right now. In the Western Conference standings, this is just kind of crazy in its own right. Denver is the 1, Memphis is 2, Sacramento is 3, and the Pelicans are 4. I mean, right now, the power is in the East in the NBA. Boston, Philly, Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and Cleveland are loaded. And that's a complete tone shift from how we were used to it, where the Western Conference was great and the East was, you had 2 teams normally getting in that were under 500. Not the case in 2023. Just kind of shake your head at the Timberwolves. We got a packed show coming up for you here on this Tuesday morning. Mike McFeely will be by in about 20 minutes' time in his usual 9:35 time slot. We'll discuss his column this morning. He, myself, and Jeff Kolpak have been working on this on the departures from the Bison football team. I encourage you to read that at InForum.com. Doesn't seem as anything nefarious going on. We'll dive into that coming up at 9:35. Seth Stohs will return at 10 o'clock from TwinsDaily.com to give us the lowdown on what he makes of the Luisa Rise trade. He talked to us about that even before it happened the last time he joined us, and now it's become official. And then the Twins made another move, which we'll tell you about in our next segment, to bolster some outfield depth. And it is Baseball Hall of Fame Election Day. Really be interested to see if anybody goes into Cooperstown. So a lot of baseball talk coming up at 10 o'clock. And at 10:45, we'll welcome back to our show the pride of Balfour, North Dakota. Cordell Volson will join us, the Cincinnati Bengals starting left guard, after his Bengals knocked off the Buffalo Bills on Sunday in Orchard Park, New York. Now they have a date with the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday night to go to the Super Bowl, trying to become the second former Bison offensive lineman in the last 3 years to play in the Super Bowl. You remember Joe Haig won the Super Bowl with the Buccaneers, nearly had a touchdown in the Super Bowl a couple years ago. All he had to do was catch the ball from Tom Brady. He would have lived on forever had he caught that one. But Volson and the Bengals will play in his rookie season to play in the AFC Championship game. We'll visit with him before we wrap our show coming up at 10:45. Excited about that. So that and a heck of a lot more coming up here on our show this morning. We'll take a break. We'll tell you the lowdown on the Twins trade and an unreal performance from the hardwood last night. Couple of them. Hot Mike, back after this on WDAY Extra, InForum.com. Don't forget our WDAY Extra Game of the Week. Back tonight. We got a big week, actually, on that. Tonight, we're on the ice. Rivalry between Fargo South Shanley and Davies. Coverage begins at 7:30 tonight right here on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. Bruins and the Eagles meeting up. They've had some dynamite games in the postseason. They'll meet tonight. South Shanley having a heck of a year. They're first in the EDC right now in boys hockey, with wins already over Red River and Central. So I don't know if it's a changing of the guard. I'm not ready to go there yet, but they have been really good so far in 2023. You can check that out tonight on WDAY Extra. Okay, couple other newsy items here before we get into the nitty-gritty of our show, and we'll discuss this later on. The reshaping of the Minnesota Twins roster continued last night. We dove into, and we'll get more into the Arise and Pablo Lopez trade in our second hour. They made a deal last night for some outfield depth as they acquired Michael A. Taylor from the Kansas City Royals in exchange for a couple of prospects. I'm not going to sit here and tell you. We'll ask Seth about the guys that they gave up coming up later on in the show. They gave up Steven Cruz, a right-handed pitcher, and a left-handed pitcher, Evan Sisk, that went to Kansas City. Taylor is a dude. He can play some defense. You can see there. Won a Gold Glove with the Royals in 2021. He has 61 defensive runs saved since 2017, which is tied with Byron Buxton and Aaron Judge for third most among all Major League outfielders in that span. That's pretty good. He won a world championship with the Washington Nationals in 2019. He had 254 with 10 doubles, 3 triples, 9 home runs, 43 RBIs, in 124 games for the Royals last year. He played 123 games in center field and led all American League outfielders with 19 defensive runs saved. I love that stat, which is matching Dalton Varsho from Arizona for tops in the majors last season. So why do you make a deal like this? Well, that's pretty clear for some defensive depth for Byron Buxton, knowing full well they don't want to trot out Jake Cave out there anymore, right? They don't want Royce Lewis playing center field. They actually want a guy who's played center field or the outfield in the major leagues before. I applaud this deal as well. I'm not trying to be a homer for the team, but actually this one makes some sense to me. Buxton played 140 games last season, which was a career high, but hasn't been in more than 100 in a year since. Oh, sorry, 140 in 2017. He played 92 just last season, of course, got hurt. That's the most he's played. He hasn't played 100 games since 2017. So this makes a ton of sense for a guy that can play defense and play the outfield. He was drafted in the 6th round in 2009 as an infielder, homered in his first game. As we mentioned, he played on the Nationals' 2019 World Series championship team, homered in his first World Series at bat. He was let go after 2020 and has played the last 2 seasons in the division, so fans probably know him with Kansas City, of course, winning a Gold Glove with the Royals in 2021. 74 home runs, 95 stolen bases in 9 big league seasons, beyond the second year of a 2-year, $9 billion contract. So it's a deal that makes sense. If you're counting on the fact that you're probably thinking Buxton can play 100 of the 162 games, then you cannot have guys out there who just can't play the outfield. As much as some may like Jake Cave, I was not one of them. And I think he signed with Baltimore now, so it's not even an option. Or Gilberto Celestino. Or even if you're a Nick Gordon guy out there, just this makes more sense to actually have a defensive presence out there on a team with pitchers that give up plenty of contact, to have a guy you saw in that opening clip, the guy that goes and makes a play. So to me, that makes sense. And we'll dive more into that coming up with Seth at 10 o'clock. 2 performances from the hardwood last night we got to show you. First, makeup game in the Summit League last night. North Dakota had to go to Macomb, a game that was supposed to be played right before Christmas. You remember the blizzard that hit the Midwest, and with the freezing temperatures that UND couldn't get to Macomb, and they rescheduled the game for last night. So the Fighting Hawks were playing for the 3rd time in 5 days. They had beaten Kansas City on Thursday, lost to Oral Roberts on Saturday, then had to go and leave for Macomb. Always a tough spot to play. Doesn't matter if it's a regularly scheduled game or not. And then last night, Trenton Masner, who was a first-team All-Summit League performer last season, had, frankly, the best game in college basketball so far this season. And we've seen him do this. He lit up the Bison last year in Fargo. Little fadeaway jumper there, just part of a dynamic night. I mean, he had 2 guys on him there, and he still drilled the three-pointer. He was sensational for Western last night. Set a school record for points in a game. Here at the line, the previous record was 43, which is crazy for a UND opponent to give up. And this is the most ever, as Masner hits the first. That got him up to 44 in the game. This actually was the lead on SportsCenter last night with Scott Van Pelt. Was the best thing he had seen all day. That was the record setter right there to get him to 46 as he was taken out of the game, as Western Illinois knocks off UND. 92-80 is the final. He scored half of Western Illinois' points last night. That was something else. That is tied for the highest point total by anybody in men's Division I basketball in 2022-23. And Masner and the Leathernecks will be here. That'll be the final game of the regular season for the Bison at the end of February. And with that win, Western now is tied with NDSU at 5-4 in the Summit League standings. So it is Oral Roberts, then the Jacks at 2, and then Western, because they have the head-to-head. They beat the Bison, you'll remember, back in December, and then NDSU. So those are the top 4 in the Summit League men's standings after that performance last night from Trenton Masner. That was outdone by what Caitlin Clark did for Iowa last night against Ohio State. We missed on this. We should have had this on What to Watch. 2 ranked teams, Ohio State coming in ranked 2nd in the country, had not lost, and Clark was phenomenal. By the way, that's in her range, folks, where she knocked down that 3. This is a tight game. End of the first quarter, Ohio State takes the lead back on that three-pointer. But then Clark decided to take over. She's not just a scorer. She can dish as well. That was a fantastic pass. Another dish down low. gave Iowa a 9-point lead heading to the fourth quarter. And just for good measure, how about drilling one from the logo? We saw this last year. Iowa, you remember, got dumped in the second round by Creighton in the NCAA tournament. Ohio State cut it to 4 there with that 3. But, I mean, look at Clark. There's no room. She gets a little room. That's all she needs for the step-back jumper. She had 28 points last night. She added in, that's 15 assists, so she had a double-double going, and she was on the doorstep of a triple-double. She had 9 rebounds at this point, and there it is. That's the 10th rebound for a triple-double. Iowa hands Ohio State its first loss, 83-72. Clark goes for 28, 15, and 10. It was her birthday on Sunday. She has the 3rd most triple-doubles in Division I history, trailing Sabrina Ionescu, who is pretty good at Oregon, who had 26. That was the 8th triple-double of her college career. 4 triple-doubles with 25 points or more are the most in Division I history, according to ESPN. She is a stud. That was fun to watch. And Iowa is a real threat to maybe do some damage in the NCAA basketball tournament. Again, showing you how tough it is in the Big Ten in women's hoops, because I know plenty are watching what Lindsey Whalen's doing at Minnesota, what Amy Williams is doing at Nebraska. They are fighting an uphill battle with Ohio State and Iowa alone in their own league. Awesome to see, and something we'll keep an eye on as we turn the calendar to March. We're due for a break. We'll take one now. We come back. Mike McFeely will join us. Lots to chat about on Bison football, some Bison hoops as well. We'll do that when Hot Mike returns right after this on WDAY Extra and InForum.com.
I have seen the future, and he was wearing number 5, and I ain't talking about Robbie Grimley, folks.
Took out the muffins, took out the trail mix, took out the cookies. They stole the monster cookies.
You good? Okay.
Is there a reason why I'm out of the shot?
Oh, there we go. We're back on. Welcome back, everybody, to
We're
Hot
on the
Mike
air,
here
Dom.
on WTAY
Hello.
Extra at InForum.com. Back with Mike McFeely here on a Tuesday morning. The Twins made another trade. How about that? They got an extra guy who can play the outfield, it sounds like, if Byron Buxton gets hurt.
Let's talk about you and I being in Philadelphia, though, 5 years ago. on my little intro there, you and I being at the Link on the night of the NFC Championship game when the Vikings got beat 38-7, which, by the way, was the same score as the Eagles kicking the pants off.
How about an 8:15 start for that game on Saturday night?
Is that what it was?
This game has Saturday.
Oh, this one, okay.
The Giants-Eagles game was an 8:15 local start.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yep.
The NFC Championship game was a 6:30 start when we were there.
If it's an 8:15 Eastern time start, I wasn't a math major. In fact, I was told by my last high school math teacher that it would be wise if I never took another math class again in my life. Which is an odd way to go about teaching, but
that's different.
Yeah, it is. It is. But that's a whole. He and his kid and myself had a little rivalry. We're on the same. We're on the same high school basketball team. Yet there's a rivalry there between us. So that shows you how good we were. Great team chemistry there. And he didn't really like me very much. The dad didn't. So that's the whole different story. Okay, he thought I was kind of a goofball, and I had a big mouth and everything else, which I don't know where he got that from.
1,000% accurate there.
Where was I going with this? Oh, the math.
The math.
Yeah, the math on. So if it's an 8:15 kickoff Eastern time, most Philadelphians wake up at 5 a.m. local time Eastern time. That gave them 5 a.m. to noon is 7 hours.
Yeah.
Noon to, let's say, 8 or 7:30.
I would say you get in the stadium, right?
Yeah, okay.
45
so that's
minutes
7.5 more hours. So by my calculations, that's 14 and a half hours of hardcore drinking before the Eagles game.
Well,
oh, my goodness.
How would you describe the scene when we were out there? I said intense yesterday. Is that right? Or would you say scary? Because I think for some Viking fans, it was scary.
I know some Vikings fans that are out there, and it got scary for them that they were being confronted because they were not bright enough to not wear Vikings uniforms.
Viking stuff,
right. Hey, here we are.
Yeah.
And they put the Vikings uniform on the Rocky statue.
Not a great.
Yeah,
no,
probably not a good move there, guys.
Because we were out there.
I thought it was when you and I were in the parking lot. It was like super party mode, super intense. People were still having fun, but I went into the stadium 3 hours before kickoff, and then that's when things started to unfold.
Yep.
But I've been to Philadelphia, I think, a half a dozen times for various sporting events, mostly the Eagles because of Wentz. I have never had a bad experience in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I love that city. It would be different if somebody had thrown a full beer can at my head in the parking lot.
Right, which happened.
Or had, beat me up because they knew that I was from Minnesota or North Dakota or whatever. I get it. I get that whole deal. But I love Philadelphia.
I do too. I was there when they won the World Series, which was crazy when the Phillies won it. And I was there when they won the NFC Championship, 2 monumental events for that city. And I had a great experience out there each of the time. I was there for the Democratic National Convention when the Eagles were holding training camp. You want to talk about another? That actually I was more intense than I thought. That
had to be 16.
Yeah, it was. When Wentz was going through his first training camp.
Things went well for us after that.
It was crazy out there. But be that as it may, it's going to be just as granted, it's a 3:00 start for the NFC Championship game. They have the early game on Sunday, and it's going to be rocking and rolling in Philadelphia once again for them. So, I had an email come in to ask you this: Is Rome burning? That's to address what's going on for the North Dakota State football team.
I just addressed it in a column that was posted online at InForum.com today, and from what I can discern, talking to many sources that I believe have knowledge of what's going on in the program. They should. No, Rome is not burning. I think the overwhelming reason that these guys are transferring, and we're talking about all the guys, the starters transferring, and the Marquise Siegels, the Dom Joneses, the Courtney Eubanks, it's because they want to go to an FBS program, hopefully a Power 5 program, and play there. For not even so much about the NFL. I've been told that these players, they know they can get to the NFL from NDSU because there's 16 guys in the NFL from NDSU this last season at one point. It's more about they want to be tested against the highest level. They want to go play in great atmospheres where there's 60,000 people, and they want to go play in wherever, at Texas or at Texas A&M or at Kansas State
LSU,
or LSU, whatever. That's I have been told by multiple people that is the reason why these guys are transferring. Now, in the case of Dom Jones and Courtney Eubanks, I was also told by multiple people that was they just wanted to. They didn't think they were playing enough. They thought they were better than the guys who were on the field. That kind of grinded on them all year long. And as I had in my column today, Dom Jones' brother was open about it.
He was
early in the season,
very much so,
saying that why isn't number 10 in the field more? That would seem to align with what I heard from those with knowledge of the program. Yep. Rome isn't burning, as far as I can tell, and we'll see how this all comes out. But what is concerning now, if you're a Bison fan and if you're a Bison coach, is the guys who have left, especially the 3 defensive guys, Siegel, Eubanks, and Jones. They were going to play every down for you, and they're good.
Really good.
I mean, Marquise Siegel ended up at Kansas State, the Big 12 champion. He's good.
Yeah.
My presumption is Dom Jones at 6'3", 210 pounds or whatever he is, as a safety, he's going to end up at a Power 5 program. Courtney Eubanks, I think he will. I don't know about that, but he certainly could. Those 3 guys leaving is the alarm that, not because of why they left but the fact that their talent is gone.
Yeah.
And it's going to be Matt Entz, the head coach, and whoever his new defensive coordinator is going to be. They have some work cut out for them between spring ball and getting ready for the season. Does that mean that NDSU is going to be 4-7 next year? No, it's not. No. I still see him going 9-2.
At worst, probably.
At worst,
with that schedule they have next season?
Yep. I mean, if they can, South Dakota State's going to be really tough.
Yep.
UND is going to be a challenge because it's up in Grand Forks, and UND's offense is going to be pretty good. The question for them is their defensive side of the ball. And they have to play Southern Illinois, the Bison do. They have to play at Missouri State.
And Northern Iowa.
Yep. So, I mean, do they finish 8-3? Do they finish 9-2?
Which is what they did this year.
Which is what they did
9-2.
this year.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. That remains to be seen. And there's some questions on offense for the Bison as well. There were questions this year.
Yes.
I mean, they couldn't throw the ball down the field. They, were limited in what they could do. I thought their play calling got incredibly predictable late in the season.
The season went along, yep.
Yep, and they have to sort all of that out.
Yep.
But to answer the emailer's question, I don't think that the program is falling apart. I think that it's as one of the parents told me, the part of the thing that's happening here is NDSU is suffering from its own success.
Right.
And I had a former assistant tell me, it's like, what people have to keep in mind is these kids are not going to, some Division II school in Kansas. They're going to Power 5 programs. And so NDSU is still getting the players. They're still getting the guys in here that are capable of going to Power 5 programs. And that's, you have to keep that in mind.
These are really good players that are coming here. Absolutely. I was charged with this last week to find out. I did this right before Thanksgiving. Is this a racially motivated deal? And I looked, Mike, at the last 3 years, just 3 years I went back of guys that have left. And it was almost negligible between white players that had left and black players that had left. People on the outside will say, well, wait a minute. Siegel left. DJ Hart left. Eubanks
Jalen
Jones.
Bussey. But there's a pattern there, by the way, that it's, yes, they're all black kids.
But where are they from?
They're also all from down south,
Outside of Siegel. Siegel's a Nebraska kid.
And he ended up at Kansas State.
Right,
He ended up with the Big 12 champion.
Right.
So it's not like he's going laterally or to a lower school.
I did not find anything merit in that.
I talked with some people, some parents of black players in the program and former players in the program, and they said it's not racial. It's just not. That's not what's going on here. I'll say this. I know that 18 to 22-year-old kids don't think of the mainstream media but it would help if somebody would talk.
Somebody would say something. Yes.
And they've been given multiple opportunities.
Yep.
But they're and this is all the way it works. I'm not upset. I'm not mad. But their way of dealing with it is they post on Twitter. Hey, thanks a lot, NDSU. We love you.
Thanks, the fans.
But I want to go do something else. And all that's great. All that is fine. But when Trey Dempsey puts out on Twitter, why are all the brothers leaving?
Right.
I mean, so it would behoove these young men when Mike McFeely, even though they don't, probably know me well at all. I know they don't know me well. And some might not know me from Adam or Dom Izzo or Jeff Kolpak. Contact them. Just return a message and say, look, I just want to go play somewhere bigger. That's all. I want more playing time. Yeah. All of that is fine.
Yep.
But
the only comment we got was like 5 words from Marquis Siegel saying his tank was empty. He was looking to go somewhere else.
Logan that, right? Yeah.
Right.
And other than that, and
that's all we've got.
But part of that, and again, I'm not, these kids, I understand they don't think of the forum or DAY or these things because that's just not where they're at in the modern world today. But if they're a 22-year-old they're an adult.
Yep.
It would behoove you to say something to somebody. If it becomes what this appears to have become. The Minneapolis North coach, it was bad information what he was putting out there, but he brought up the possible racial angle.
Yep.
And by the way, it would also help if the head coach or somebody within the program
that's what my next point
would say something.
If somebody from NDSU a statement, something on it, because when there's this vacuum out there, you can fill it with anything.
Yes.
And that's what's happened over the last week.
Yep. And I think that's just it's the coaching staff just not recognizing what's happening out beyond their bubble or their silo.
Beyond their walls.
Because they might know what's going on. And they might say, well, okay, we got guys transferring to bigger programs. Okay, big deal. But when it's out there the way it was, and because they're NDSU, that matters. Incarnate Word has 25 guys in the portal. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Missouri State has 20.
Missouri State has 20 kids in the portal. Nobody cares.
Nope.
Nobody cares. But when NDSU has 12 kids in the portal, and by the way, it matters that 7 of them were contributors and 3 or 4 were really important guys, right? That matters. But the fact that it's NDSU does matter. I think the coaches didn't recognize, from the best I can tell, because they ain't talking, is that they just said, what's the big deal here? Yep. Well, the big deal is you're NDSU, and there's stuff on the horrible world of Twitter and social media that is disparaging you, and I think at some point you need to answer it.
Say something about it. Yep. Let's take a break. We'll chat more about this. We'll chat some hoops as well, as we are now starting the second half of conference play in the Summit League. We'll do that more with Mike McFeely. We come back on Hot Mike right after this. All right, wrapping up our first hour back here with Mike McFeely. 2 other points I wanted to get to here, because we talked about it quite a bit. You and I have talked about this since we first got introduced last summer to name, image, likeness. How much, I don't believe, I think it would be a factor. I don't think it would have got these guys to stay wholeheartedly. I think it would have got them in the conversation.
Yeah, I think, again, from what I've been told, they want to go on to a bigger program. But in some cases would name, image, and likeness, at least, as you said, allow the conversation to say, now, wait a second. I know that your mom and dad and brothers and sisters couldn't get to Fargo because it's so expensive to fly from Tampa to Fargo. So, but with our collective, you could be making, this much money a year. And I know that coaches are not allowed to talk about that, but if you believe that never happens in college football, you are living on a different planet.
I could sell you a couple bridges.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then say, look, you can make this much that'll allow you to buy plane tickets, to do this, to have your, whatever. I mean, it's hard. I mean, if you're a kid from Florida, you've never been to North Dakota before, you're coming to a place, frankly,
you know no one.
Where you know no one. Yep. Frankly, everybody around you looks different than you do, except for on your team, right? Yep. I mean, Fargo is 95% white, and that matters, as it should, right? I mean, Tampa's probably 60-40 black. And all that, and you're 18 years old and you're away from home going to a different planet. That matters.
It's different.
You can't drive home on a weekend on a day off and say, I just got to be home for a day to see my family, to see my mom, to see my dad, to get a home cooked meal.
Right.
You can't do that when you are from Tampa or Orlando or Atlanta.
Dovetailing off of that, I was told that from sources close to the program that they're going to look at their recruiting model about they have hammered Georgia and Florida, and they found some great players there.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
From the likes of Chris Board to Christian Watson to Kobe Johnson over the last few years, that they may take a look at that.
Well,
what do you make of that?
They're in a weird place, NDSU is, because they've gotten so many good players out of that area, right? I mean, and you can't dismiss that and say, well, we're not going to take, we don't want Bruce Anderson. We don't want Christian Watson. But if you continue to do what you're doing and this continues to happen,
right,
then you're going to have holes on your roster that you can't fill other than through the transfer portal.
Right.
And then do you want to become that program? And maybe you can't avoid it. I mean, maybe if your goal is to win national championships, and in their case they want to move someday to FBS, like they'd do it tomorrow if they could, if they got an invite. I don't think you can limit yourself and say, well, we just want to, because there's just not enough good players that can win national championships
in Wisconsin, Iowa, right?
Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin,
right,
and Nebraska. Yep. There's just not. No. You can. I mean, that's where your base has to be from. Is from the Twin Cities, and you always want to get the best players out of North Dakota, and you want to compete with South Dakota State and South Dakota. That's going to be tougher now as well. But you can't. You just can't limit yourself to that area. You can't be recruiting against the NSIC.
No.
And hope to,
and think you're going to win the whole thing.
Think you're going to win the whole
right.
thing. It all depends what your goals are. If your goals is to be a playoff team, okay, then you can do that.
You can do that.
If your goal is to beat FBS programs to win FCS national championships and to be attractive to the AAC or the Mountain West, then you have to have a national recruiting footprint.
Look at SDSU, because I got this thrown at me. We're running along here. The Jacks have gone into Missouri. They've gone into Arkansas and found studs there. Pierre Strong, Isaiah Davis, Amar Johnson are from that area.
Yeah.
They have went in there. They've expanded their footprint. Because I had people ask me, well, wait a minute, Don, the Bison lost. How many of the Jacks lost? It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
And I've had South Dakota State fans reach out to me and say, we know this is going to happen down here eventually, but I'm sort of enjoying what's happening right now.
I don't doubt it.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
I mean, but it's going to happen. It's happened at UND. They've lost some good players the last couple of years. They had an offensive lineman who was a starter leave in the middle of a season. I mean, so it's going to happen everywhere if you start to get good players in. Again, it all depends what you want to do. If you want to just recruit the area.
You're exactly right on that.
And keep players in your program for 4 years,
then you can go that model. I don't know how many games you're going to win.
Right. Yep.
You're not beating South Dakota State going down that road, in my opinion.
Nope.
I don't think so.
And NDSU, as they should be trying to win national championships because that's what they do. And so you're going to have to find a balance of, are we willing to go down and get these kids, develop them, and then see them leave after 3 years in the program to go someplace else? Can we still win that way? Or do we say, nope, we're gonna just recruit Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa?
I don't think they can go that route, personally.
I don't think so either, but I don't know because I haven't talked to anybody in the program. They don't want to talk. So,
last thing. How big is it? What happened with Bison Hoops this past weekend? Is it something to...
Well, that remains to be seen. Okay. I mean, that was a big weekend buildup. We thought, okay, Bison are looking okay. They've won 5 in a row.
Yep.
The Oral Roberts loss, I didn't think was catastrophic. Oral Roberts is really good.
They are
unless something really weird happens, they're going to win the league. They're going to go to the tournament.
Could they do what the Jacks did, go unbeaten?
They could.
Yeah, I think they have a great chance.
I think they have one... They have one difficult game left, I think.
They have to go to Brookings.
They have to go to Frost. Yeah. Yep. If they win that, if you're going undefeated in the league. Yeah. That said, to me, the Saturday game against Kansas City was the one where I just went, wow, what a clunker that is. That's just inexcusable. I don't want to say that because it's 18 to 22-year-old kids.
That's a tough loss.
But that's just a bad loss.
Yeah, I was going to say bad. It's bordering on bad.
Yeah, no, it doesn't border. It was a bad loss. Yeah. Kansas City lost by 15 the night before up in Grand Forks. Yeah. Came down here. If NDSU would have played well, they would have won by 10 points. They just played poorly from the start. Mm-hmm. And it was only Kansas City's I think, cold shooting, poor play themselves.
Bad free throw
in
shooting
the second half
too.
That allowed NDSU to get back in the game. Then they couldn't close the deal.
And the Bison missed 10 free throws as well. Add that into that
One
mix,
of the worst, second worst free throw shooting team in the Summit League. And one of the worst in the country. And just, you can't do that when the margin of error is so thin. That was a bad. So we'll see. They have 2 games, or they have a game on Friday against UND at home. Yep. UND is 1-8,
yeah, they
1-7
lost last night to Western
in the league. They're not very good, even though they showed some signs of life by beating Kansas City, and they hung in there for a while with Oral Roberts for most of the game. But I don't think that they've turned things around. They're a very beatable, last place team by 2 games in the Summit.
The Bison still have to go to Brookings. They have to go to Vermilion on the back end here. They get the majority of the teams at home though. After that,
they have to go to Oral Roberts.
They have to go to ORU. They have those
and Kansas City. They have to go to Kansas City
as
well.
They do get Kansas City, but they get Western here. That's St. Thomas.
4 more potential losses. That's why.
Saturday was a tough.
Saturday
that
was a tough
one
one.
You got to get.
Yep.
Because right now, I mean, you're thinking 4. Possibly 5 or 6 maybe in the league standings, knowing if you can't win any of those games, and the Jacks seem like they're getting healthy and going in the right direction, that be interesting to see what's going to happen here in the last month of the season.
Yep.
Sioux Falls, is it a one-man show in Sioux Falls?
At this point, yes.
Okay. The Jacks get anything there. It'd be a road game for ORU. We know that if they had to play in South Dakota State.
And Paul Mills will let everybody know about that. He will let everybody know that he's the only program other than a Dakota school
to win
in Sioux Falls because it's really a home game for the Dakota schools.
But by the way, the referees missed a call at the end of that game, or else they wouldn't have won that game either.
Correct.
2 of them, actually. Yeah. The semifinal game and the championship game.
And NDSU decided to fall behind by 235 points in the first half.
Great to see you, man. Thanks for
Yep,
coming by. You
you
can
bet.
check out Mike's story right now at InForum.com on his column on the buys and departures. We'll take a break. We come back. The Twins made a couple of big moves. Where are they going from here? We'll discuss that when we start hour 2 of Hot Mike right after this.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike on the networks of WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Welcome back, everybody, on a Tuesday morning edition. Hot Mike rolls on. Reminder, Cincinnati Bengals starting left guard Cordell Volson will join us coming up at 10:45 after the Bengals' big win in Buffalo and set for the AFC Championship game coming up in Kansas City on Sunday. Well, as we mentioned off the top of the show, the Minnesota Twins made another deal as they continue to shape this roster for 2023 after the deal they made on Friday to trade away American League batting champion Luis Arraez to the Miami Marlins. Our next guest actually predicted that trade would go down, so he's on again now to give us more visions of the future. As we welcome back Seth Stohs from TwinsDaily.com. I know you had done some reporting on this, so I know you weren't surprised on the Arraez deal that Pablo Lopez actually was the guy that the Twins were targeting. Now they pulled the trigger on it, though. What do you make of that deal that went down?
Yeah, it's a tough deal. It's, as a Twins fan, you definitely see both sides of it because we love Luis Arraez. I mean, I got to know him throughout his minor league career, and as he got to the big leagues and things like that, he won the batting title, which, is what it is at this point, but it's still meaningful. He's a good hitter, but at the same time, pitching wins. We all know that, and the pitching, the Twins have never been real strong at pitching. So they've given themselves an opportunity by adding Pablo Lopez just to add more depth. Now, if you're looking at Bailey Ober and Louis Varland or your 6th and 7th pitchers, you got a pretty deep staff, and it allows for injuries and all that. So tough to lose Arraez, but to get a guy like Pablo Lopez gives you an opportunity.
Your website is great it gives us information on the guys that they trade away, which I'm going to get to in a second, and guys they add in. I am interested, though, what was the fan reaction over the weekend? Was it mixed on the Arraez deal? Was it negative? What did you get on that?
Very much mixed. The quote-unquote thinking fan, is willing to go out there and say, okay, he's a one-dimensional player, a singles type of hitter with a little bit of extra base pop. Really no defensive position. They've got a full infield. They have depth in the infield. They have depth in the outfield. Where are you going to play him? Now you got a number 2 starter for him. So there's that side of it. But there is the fandom too, and that's okay. It's okay to say he was so fun to watch. And when he took a pitch just off the edge of the zone and he did a little dance or shimmy or whatever, that's fun to watch, and it is an entertainment industry.
They also, we talked about this last time you were on. I don't know if they had a position for him. I mentioned this yesterday on the show. I don't know where you play him, how the team is currently constituted. Where was his long-term future, Seth? I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's a big part of the question because they're going to give Jose Miranda every opportunity at third base.
Right.
Carlos Correa obviously is going to play short. Jorge Polanco's got a couple more years at second. And ideally, if healthy, Alex Kirilloff's your first baseman. You've got Joey Gallo. You've got some other guys that can play there. I wouldn't be surprised if they added a right-handed hitting first base option just for depth. So Arraez was really a DH, backup first base, backup second base. And again, that's not to denigrate him. He's a terrific player, but, with his 25-year-old knees, I mean, it's just so hard to predict what's going to happen. I hope he goes to Miami and wins 5 more batting titles, but I do still think this is a good deal.
Let me ask you, before we get to Pablo Lopez, on first base, if Kirilloff isn't ready, who's the Twins' first baseman on opening day? Is it Joey Gallo?
It could be. Will Max Kepler still be around? I think that's a big question, too. He's played some first base in the minors. It's been a while, but he could do it. Maybe Kyle Farmer, give him some opportunities there. It's also possible if it's more of a split time type of thing, they could put Jose Miranda back at first base and put Kyle Farmer at third base.
Okay.
So that's kind of the one of the things they like having is guys who can play multiple positions. And, Kyle Farmer certainly allows that in the infield. So they would have some options.
All right, so Pablo Lopez comes in, guy that was really solid for the Marlins. Their number 2 guy behind Sandy Alcantara, who won the National League Cy Young last season. Give us the scoop on this guy, and where does he fit himself into the Twins rotation for 2023?
Well, first, it's important to note that he's only 26. He's like a couple weeks older than Joe Ryan, who is quote-unquote a second-year guy or almost still a prospect. Bailey Ober's a year older than him. And when you put him in with Tyler Mahle and Sonny Gray, Kenta Maeda will be back. He slots right there with those guys as a number 2 type of a starter. 26, I'm guessing the Twins pitching people have some ideas for how to take him to another level, or they're certainly going to try to do that to make him a quote-unquote ace. He's got that kind of stuff. He's got a good fastball in the up, 93 to 95 range. He works up in the zone, but he's also got a pretty good breaking ball, but he's got a tremendous changeup. And those of us that remember Brad Radke, Johan Santana, there's nothing better than watching a good changeup pitcher. And it'll be interesting to watch him do that. He's a Venezuelan. He grew up watching Santana.
I will tell you, as a National League East fan, the Marlins always know pitching. Ever since they've come into existence for their scouting department, and you know this, Seth, from covering minor leagues and scouting, the Marlins find guys that always pitch. They always have. So I maybe this guy's going to be great. I don't know, but he can throw. He's got good stuff.
Well, and now he'll face AL Central hitters a little bit more than NL East hitters in New York and Philadelphia and Atlanta. So, there's a chance he comes in and does real well, but, it's going to be an adjustment period for him and the team and learning each other, learning the catchers, all of that stuff. So, it may not be perfect, but it's a guy that not only is here for 2023, but also 2024. And who knows, maybe they are able to work out something more long-term. But, again, I like the deal. I think there is some upside there. And we always talk, even if you want to consider a rise for Lopez, fairly even, I would tend to think that Twins fans would side on the side of having pitching, because we know what not having pitching looks like.
If I were to ask you right now for the opening week of the season, are the Twins going with a 6-man rotation? What are the chances of that if you were to put a percentage on it?
I would guess it would be low. I don't think they want to go to a 6-man rotation. I think if everyone's healthy, you may see either Bailey Ober as a long reliever for a little while, or even sent down to St. Paul to start the season, which is too bad. Ober really does a nice job when he's healthy. But I also think, Kenta Maeda is coming off of Tommy John. He missed all of last year. Tyler Mahle, we don't know what to expect with the shoulder injuries that allowed him only 2 starts with the Twins last year. Sonny Gray had hamstring issues all year. So these things tend to work themselves out. Maybe one of them starts on the IL, and maybe it's not a bad idea to start with a 6-man rotation just to get into the flow of the season.
You specialize in knowing about minor leaguers. Who are the 2 guys that the Twins also got in this deal? Everyone looks at it as a 1-for-1 with Lopez for a rise, but they got 2 really talented prospects from the Marlins. What about these 2 guys, and how far away are they, I guess is a better question, from the major leagues?
Yeah, they aren't guys we'll see right away. The headlining prospect, I think, is Jose Salas. He's a 19-year-old shortstop, I believe from Venezuela. He's ranked in some of the top 100 national prospect rankings. He's certainly an easy top 10 Twins prospect. Most don't think he'll stay at short, but at 19, he was in high A already last year. He's got a chance to be pretty special. The other guy I really am intrigued by is a 17-year-old Byron Chorio. Played last year, made his pro debut in the Dominican Summer League, put up great numbers, hit 344, I think 9 doubles and a homer. Looks the part, certainly, but as I like to say, he's in the Dominican Summer League, which means he's 6 promotions from the big league. So long way to go.
Yeah. But the fact that they got, Salas is really intriguing to me, looking at his stats and where he's at. That's another guy. The infield is you can move around, guys. That's where you like to have some flexibility there. The other deal last night now for Michael A. Taylor, I think is clear as crystal, saying and this is me talking, you can't keep trotting out Jake Cave or Royce Lewis or Nick Gordon to play the outfield. Here's a guy, if Buxton, we think, can't play more than 100 games, he can play the outfield and he can hit a little bit. That's the biggest thing.
Such an important point. And you mentioned Royce Lewis, so I want to just go back real quick. Adding Jose Salas as a shortstop prospect to Brooks Lee, Austin Martin, you're adding a lot of really good athletes that can play all over. And if he needs to move somewhere else, that's okay, because you've got a good athlete. And speaking of good athletes, I mean, Michael A. Taylor he was the Gold Glove winning center fielder in 2021 with Kansas City. He's got great speed, great instincts, great first step, very strong arm. And like you said, it allows for the Twins to give or have a plan for how to keep Byron Buxton on the field and in the lineup as much as possible without losing a step in center field. So I think it's an interesting deal. He's not going to hit much. It's not an exciting deal, but it's a deal that I think makes this team better.
Well, how often do and you and I talked about this, and I have Dick Bramer on my show each Wednesday through the season, like, who are they putting in the outfield? Like, this defensive outfield is susceptible to giving up runs if Buxton can't play, and this doesn't close the gap on that, but it certainly addresses it.
It does. Nick Gordon has done, we couldn't ask for anything more for a guy that really played only shortstop and a little bit of second base in the minors. He's done well in left field, and he handles himself just fine in center. But, it's a stretch to some degree. I think Gilberto Celestino is a fantastic defensive outfielder, but at 23, he's played 2 years where he had 20 games above AA or above A ball. So to allow him to probably get a full year or at least extended run in the minor leagues and actually develop is a good thing. So that, and looking at it that way, you're not only improving the team today by adding Taylor, who can also spell Kepler and right. Gallo and left. You've got Larnick, who has the potential to be a very good outfielder offensively and defensively. And you help Celestino potentially develop into more of what he could be. That's kind of the bigger picture look, and I think that is exciting.
Couple questions left with Seth Stohs, twinsdaily.com. Do you believe they're done, the Twins, or is there more moves to make here?
Yeah, if we've learned one thing about Derek Falvey and Thad Levine, they're not afraid to go into spring training and keep making moves. I want to say they've done something at this stage or later every single year. So I don't think they're done. I think if you look at that outfield depth, you've got a lot of guys there. I think Max Kepler's a guy they've been trying to trade, and that's not to say they will trade him, but he's some depth at this point. I do think they got to do something, maybe to add one more bullpen arm, whether it's bringing back a Michael Fulmer. Sure, it'd be nice if they could trade Emilio Pagan with Max Kepler and maybe get a solid, a bullpen arm or something. But I think they've got at least another move in them.
The Caravan's going to be here tomorrow, Seth. Twins Fest is back this weekend. I'm interested. How do you? And I'm asking you to speak for a majority of Twins fans. How that's going to go? The interaction now, prior to the Correa deal, I don't think they were hopeful Twins Fest was another 2 months from now. How do you think the general reaction from Twins fans is going to be seeing the team and seeing the management of this either tonight or over the weekend at Target Field?
And I think a couple of things. First, it was the beginning of this month, so less than 3 weeks ago, the Twins had a payroll of something like $95 million going into the season. And right now they're closer to 155. So I feel like, the front office has done some things to not only bring in talent and spend money, but to make this team a very interesting team. Secondly, specifically to the Caravan and the group that's coming to Fargo, you got Tommy Watkins, who's as good a baseball person and a great guy. Jose Miranda, not only a great prospect, but he's a lot of fun, very well-spoken from Puerto Rico, just a fun story. And Nick Gordon is great. I've always enjoyed talking to Nick Gordon since, 2016 or whenever he was in Cedar Rapids. So you got a great group that should make it a lot of fun. I think Dan Gladden's in that group as well. So what a fun night you'll be a part of. I wish I could be there.
It's interesting to see the moves, and I'm really curious. Like, I tend to agree with you. What else? I think they're not done, and they saw exactly what it's going to take to win the American League Central. I don't know if this is the pitching staff that can win a playoff series, but you got to get there. And that's the biggest thing. They didn't have that last year. So I'm not apologizing for the team. I'm just telling you that they could hit, and I think they'll still be able to hit without Luis Arraez. They couldn't pitch to save their lives last year. They need to figure that out, and they've made at least a step towards that.
Yeah, and you talked about it. I mean, they may not have a Max Scherzer, a Justin Verlander, even maybe a Framber Valdez type of a pitcher, Jacob DeGrom when he's healthy. But they've got a bunch of solid number threes and really number twos, and that's going to win a lot of games for you, keep you in a lot of games throughout the season, get you to the playoffs, and then from there you take your chances.
Baseball Hall of Fame elections coming up later today. You think anybody's getting in, or is this just Fred McGriff and that's it?
It's going to be close. I feel like Scott Rowland and Todd Helton both have somewhat of a chance. It's inexplicable to me why Billy Wagner isn't in already. But then again, Joe Nathan and Johan Santana didn't even get to a second ballot. So you're never quite sure what the writers are going to do. And hopefully Torrey Hunter gets over 5%. So it'll be interesting for sure.
Great to chat, man, as always. I always appreciate the time. Thanks for the intel, and we'll talk again soon, okay?
Always enjoy it, Dom.
Good
Thanks
to see you,
a lot.
bud. Seth Stohs from TwinsDaily.com. Check out their website. All sorts of great information on Pablo Lopez, the two prospects the Twins also added in the deal, and the two guys that the Twins are sending off to Kansas City to get Michael A. Taylor. Reminder that the Twins Winter Caravan is tomorrow at the Sanctuary Event Center. We'll be over there to cover that. As you mentioned, Nick Gordon, Jose Miranda will be here in town. And it's been a while, 3 years since the last time the Caravan was back out. And I know baseball fans just excited to talk and see some major leaguers here in town. That's coming up tomorrow. And the Twins in the midst of still retooling the 2023 roster. We'll come back. We'll reset some things, get you caught up on our top story. Remember, Cordell Volson coming up in about 20 minutes as well. Hot Mic continues after this on WDAY Extra and InForum.com. Welcome back, everybody, on a busy Tuesday morning. The rating numbers are in from this weekend from the NFL, which is not going to be surprising, of course, of what they are. They're just outrageous again. The Jags-Chiefs game, the Saturday afternoon game, was the most watched Saturday afternoon NFL divisional in a decade. 34.3 million people watched on NBC and Peacock for that game, which, by the way, next to the Dallas-San Francisco game, was the most competitive of the four. Fox got 45.7 million for Cowboys 49ers, marking the most watched NFL divisional round game since the network got 48.5 for Packers Cowboys in 2017. Holy cow. They were hoping for that probably for the championship game. That is a monster number. That's better than 4 of the last 5 NFC championship games on Fox. Also better than 3 of the last 5 AFC championship games on CBS. So what does that mean? Well, 2 things. A, you had the Cowboys in it, and as much as everyone wants to despise them, people watch. And B, a competitive game that went right down to the wire. And I think C, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow on the show, the Brock Purdy storyline, if they're able to win Sunday, it is going to be unbelievable for the lead up for the Super Bowl. You won't be able to go anywhere about hearing about Mr. Irrelevant leading the 49ers to the Super Bowl. Those 3 factors in my mind are, you can't dispute how huge that is to get regular people to watch. Hey, you got to watch this game. This guy, total, almost off the street rookie and leading his team. He's the 3rd stringer. I mean, they can't even get away with a movie script like that. And you've got a uber talented team around him. Plus, with Dallas, you've got just, for some, it is the epitome of evil because they despise the Cowboys. Others, it's America's team. You love to see them lose or watch them win dramatically one way or the other. ESPN benefited the same way because look at the rating for that game with Tampa. That game wasn't close, and it still had gargantuan rating. Cowboys do that one way or the other. They move the needle. There's no doubt about it. And with these teams left, you have highly recognizable, maybe the face of the NFL in one, in Patrick Mahomes. You've got maybe the up-and-coming face of the NFL in Joe Burrow in that late game with Cincinnati. And then in the NFC game, you have two guys that if you would have told me when we were doing our prediction segment in August that the NFC Championship game was going to be Brock Purdy against Jalen Hurts, I mean, you could have won a lot of bets. Even Jalen Hurts being in the NFC Championship game, I think you won a lot of bets there, knowing that you had the Rams and Matthew Stafford and the 49ers with a healthy Trey Lance, the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. No one thought the NFC East was going to be any good, let alone have three teams in the Final Four. That's the craziness of it, and that's why it's such a juggernaut-wise television, and you'll see it again this weekend. I would imagine that the AFC game will outrate the NFC just because of the time window. The AFC is the late game, so they'll have more people probably watching then. But if you've got two competitive games, look out. That's crazy. 45.7 million watching Cowboys 49ers on Sunday evening. We'll take a quick break. We come back. More on Noah Pauley leaving NDSU. A reminder, we've got Cordell Volson coming up here in about 15 minutes from Cincinnati as his Bengals get set for a trip to the Super Bowl. Hot Mic rolls on. Final half hour of the show. We'll do that when we come back. Welcome back, everybody. Tuesday morning edition, Hot Mic. I know people had a couple of asking me about Kyle Emanuel normally joining us. Kyle couldn't today. He'll be back with us next week. Plenty to chat about there. As we talked about at the top of the show, just because the football season is over doesn't mean the football chat is done, and the news certainly on that as well. So Kyle will be back with us next Tuesday. If you missed the top of the show, the big news out of North Dakota State football that wide receiver coach Noah Pauley leaving, according to ESPN's Pete Thamel, for the same job at Iowa State. Pauley had been here for the last 4 years, developed quite a few guys at that spot, including most notably Christian Watson, who ended up being the 34th overall pick in the NFL draft last year. He actually just tweeted out 1 week ago today. He tweeted out that he was back in the Sunshine State, home to some great Bison, including Zach Mathis and Hunter Brosio. Those are two other guys from the state of Florida that are major contributors for this year's team. We visited with Noah back in October, right before the first South Dakota State game, and part of our lengthy interview segments that we had with each of the coaches. I found this morning. I want to play this snippet. I asked him specifically about other opportunities about leaving NDSU after his experience with the NFL in the coaching mentorship program that he got into last May. Here's a snip of our interview from last October.
You've been here for a few years now. Tell me, now you've had the NFL experience. Tell me what, aspirations beyond, what have you looked beyond? I know coaches are always keeping their eyes open for what could be on. Tell me about that. Have you looked, not necessarily looking, but what would you say, okay, this would be something I would leave North Dakota State for?
Yeah, it's hard to even have those conversations because the people and the coaches and all those things that here that are just so good to myself and my family. We're close to Duluth, so those questions don't really come up. Would I love to be in the NFL at some point in time in my career? Yeah, but I wouldn't say that I'm looking. I just, you know what I mean? You gotta be where your feet are and make sure that you're pouring into these guys that are here right now and making sure that they're enjoying the experience, graduating, and moving on and doing great things.
That was in October, and, coach is always looking to move up. David Braun told me the same thing when I asked him in the same setting back in September on potential of wanting to be maybe a head coach. And how you do that, you move up the ranks. You take a coordinator job in a Power 5 school like Braun did at Northwestern. You take a position coach at a Power 5 job like Paulie's doing at Iowa State. You don't begrudge these guys one iota on that. That's the nature of this business. And I know for some skeptical Bison fans, they're worried now, well, he's going to take some of the Bison wide receivers, whether it be Eli Green, another guy I forgot to mention off the top of the show, or a Bryce Lance, or the two heralded freshmen. Again, in this day and age, you never know about that. Knowing full well, though, the portal is closed for now until May. Movement can happen after spring ball. For coaches, it can happen whenever. They go and come and go, as we have long documented on this show. Come and go as you please there. But for player movement, it is subsided for now. And I was looking at a photo that Dave Sampson took on Matt Entz's introductory press conference of his staff. And the only guys that are still there, Grant Olson, Tyler Roll, and Randy Hedberg of his initial staff, not counting Nick Gazer, who is a holdover from the previous staff, as were Roll and Hedberg. Other than that, it's been Dan Larson's still there. Larson was hired shortly after these guys, but Paulie, A.J. Blazik, David Braun, all have moved on. Buda Williams, of course, left last year off the staff. It is that the nature of the beast of how this goes, and I'm not telling Bison fans something they don't already know on that. So, be interesting to see where things move here. But now 2 positions are open: defensive coordinator and wide receivers coach on an already amped up spring ball, which was going to be considering of the player departures that have happened over the last 10 days. So you've got that to mix in with the fact you've got new coaches to mix in. It is a dynamite setting of what is going to play out here over the next few months before this team actually plays a football game again on September 2nd at U.S. Bank Stadium. It is going to be really intriguing to see the next few months of how this works for Bison football. Speaking of Bison football, one of the all-timers is got a chance to play in the Super Bowl. We'll take a break. We come back. Cincinnati Bengals starting left guard Cordell Volson will join us from Cincy as his Bengals get ready for a showdown with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll do that and wrap up our show right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Wrapping up the show on this Tuesday morning. I got two different emails to read here as we wait for Cordell to join us. This is interesting. FCS schools, this is hysterical to me, that have had the most scholarship players transfer to an FBS school during this cycle. Okay, FCS schools that have had the most scholarship players transfer to an FBS school. Jackson State with 10. No surprise there with Dion. Incarnate Word, 9. St. Francis had 6. East Tennessee State, 5. So the Bison aren't on that list, just so you know. Jackson State leading the way at 10 is not surprising at all that Dion had that many guys moving on. Speaking of moving on, our next guest is still playing football. His team is moving on to the AFC Championship game. The Cincinnati Bengals knocked off the Buffalo Bills on Sunday and now have a date with the Kansas City Chiefs coming up on Sunday. The winner of that will go to the Super Bowl in Arizona. How about this? The last time our guy was on, he was all getting ready for the NFL, and look, he didn't big time me at all. Here he is, the pride of Balfour, North Dakota. Cordell Volson joins us. How's it going, big man? Congratulations.
Well, I appreciate it, Dom. Sorry about being a little bit late here. I got hung up at the facility a little bit, but I made it on. I wasn't big dogging you. I just got tied up for a second.
First off, no apologies, man. You're working. Second, tell me about going to the local establishment with the game ball on Sunday. What was that like? That was awesome, man.
That was great. Probably one of the coolest things that I've done. Just rolling up with Ted Karras, our center. We roll in there and the place is going nuts. Who Dey chants are going, and they have us come back behind the bar and raise the ball and we give a little speech and it was cool. The whole place was rocking.
You and we had a chat on your bye week. You decided to spend it in Carbondale, Illinois, because you wanted to see your teammates play. And I remember talking before the game, and you said, "You know what? We're starting to put it together." I'm not talking out of school. You said this to me. I think we're going to go on a run. Did you see this though coming out of this? You haven't lost now.
It is crazy. I remember that conversation. I knew that it was something that we were capable of doing. We just had to make the right moves at the right time, I guess. It's such a competitive league. It's so hard to win in, and you gotta make the right decisions at the critical time and make plays when they're presented, and that's what we've been doing. And our guys have been balling out. Our defense has saved us several times. We've put ourselves in maybe not some great situations. Our defense has been playing extremely well. Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, our receivers are doing what they do, and really, really excited to be a part of this team. And I think we're moving in the right direction, and very excited for this opportunity on Sunday.
So here you are, man. You're one game away from where every football player that was a little kid wants to be at. And I know you can't worry about that. It's the next game, but tell me about, you're playing in the AFC Championship. You're a year removed from playing here, and now have a chance to play in the Super Bowl.
Isn't it crazy, Dom? Like you said, every kid that picks up a football dreams of playing in the Super Bowl someday, and to have an opportunity on Sunday to put us closer to that goal is crazy. And people ask, well, do you get nervous? Big stage. Yeah, maybe the night before you don't sleep quite as well, but once the ball's kicked off, it's just football. And I think that's one of the coolest things about this game is that once you step on the white line or step across the white lines, it's just football. And none of that outside noise matters. And definitely excited. It's a great time to be a Cincinnati Bengal. And it's funny, Joe. Our O-line was sitting in front of our lockers this morning, and Joe Burrow comes up and he says, "Man, football is sure a lot of fun when you're winning." And he hit the nail on the head right there.
Well, that's all you know, man. I mean, you could preach it right back to him. I mean, all you know is winning and playing late in the season, playing into January. I mean, just describe last week, hearing all the talk that, well, no offensive lineman left. All they got is a rookie. How much did you personally take that to heart before the Bills game?
Yeah, it's crazy because everyone's saying that, and I had a meeting with our O-line coach last week, and he told me, "Hey, you're not a rookie anymore. You're in season 2. You gotta start to execute that way." And I took that personal. I realized that a lot more is going to be needed out of me. Just relied on the great vets that are in our room. Yeah, they might be banged up, but they're still great resources and just such great influential people. And the guys that stepped up did an unbelievable job. We knew that everyone in our room is capable of playing that way. And those guys just had a great week of prep and have been working so hard all year, and to see those guys go out there and produce and play extremely well was great, and to play alongside those guys in such a high competitive game, it was awesome.
If I would have told you this time last year when we were visiting before the Shrine Bowl that, hey, you're going to be blocking for Joe Burrow and have a chance to play for the Super Bowl, how much money would you put on that bet that you would never believe me on that?
Man, Dom, I would have told you that you're crazy. And it's unbelievable. Honestly, I don't even know how to put it into words. Just playing with Joe and just what a great guy he is and what a great teammate and leader and competitor. And then to be a part of such a great room in our offensive line room, having a great coach like Frank Pollock and just some great veterans that have been great role models for me has been great. And just love going into the facility every day and love going to practice and being a part of this.
Tell me how big time it was back home on the NBC. I'm watching the Sunday night game against the Bengals, and they introduce everybody. There it is, Cordell Volson, North Dakota State. How cool? First off, how cool was that to record that?
That's cool. And it's really cool. We alternate at home running out of the tunnel, and they go at left guard from North Dakota State. It's really cool. And then everyone's posting it on social media, videotaping me getting the NBC announcement, whatever. And it's really cool. It's really special, because you grow up as a kid watching all these games and being like, oh, that guy's from there, and to represent North Dakota State and the state of North Dakota. And, it's a blessing. That's for sure.
It's the next game, but what do you think the emotions are going to be like Sunday for you?
I think it's just, it's a highly anticipated game, and the feeling you get before a national championship, the feeling that so much is on the line, and that it's either win or go home. You win or the season's over, and I don't want this season to be over. So so it's gonna be maybe some high anxiety, but it's gonna be an exciting next couple weeks.
I've had the chance to visit with Cody Mauk a few times. I got to go back to Hankinson and see the big celebration they had for him. His dad told me they already got the rec center planned out for the draft. How much have you talked to him about what he's going through now of what you did just this time last year?
Yeah, Cody and I are really close. Really excited for him and really happy for him, what he's got going for him. We talk a couple times a week. We're extremely close, and he came to my draft party this past spring, so I'm looking forward to going to his. Really excited for him. Can't wait to see him just really turn some heads at the Senior Bowl, and it's awesome that every single year there's an offensive lineman coming out of North Dakota State, and it's really special that it's another North Dakota kid.
If I told you Balfour and Hankinson would have two NFL guys, I mean, who would have believed that?
Yeah. I mean, who would have ever thought? Especially in the transition period where NDSU moved to the Division I, and everyone thought that North Dakota kids weren't going to be on that team anymore, and now having so many that have played such a key role in the success of NDSU.
Okay, I have one request. I never asked this. We've got some mini helmets in here. I need a Bengals white mini helmet. Can you make that happen for me? We need that for the show.
I think I can make that happen, and after the season, I'll have to get into the studio and get on air with you.
There we go. I love it. Have your parents missed the game? Have they been to every game so far?
They've missed a few,
okay.
Especially with my little brothers playing and stuff.
Yeah.
They're trying hard to not favor either side, and to get to everyone's games. They're going to come to Kansas City,
nice.
which is great. My mom flew out. She actually flew to Cincy here and then drove to Buffalo this past weekend, which is not a far drive.
Yeah.
But they missed the first playoff game. But to have them at this one is going to be really exciting.
Last question for you, bud, was there a pancake block you had that you couldn't believe you got on this guy? Has that happened yet?
I think the first one is the biggest one, where you get it and you're like, holy, like I just pancaked a guy in the NFL. There's one against your team, Dom, the Jets up in New York. That was pretty fun. It was, it was got out in space, but it's cool. Just every single week playing against the best in the world is such a fun experience, and just shoot. It's funny, I played Cam Hayward twice this year. I was 10 years old when he got into the NFL. And just playing against a guy that you watched for so many years, and that plays at such a high level. And to play against guys like that is really cool.
We got to roll, man. Thanks so much for doing this, especially in a huge week. I appreciate the time as always. Have a ball and good luck on Sunday, okay?
Appreciate it, Dom. You take care.
Great to see you, man. There he goes. Pride of Balfour. Cordell Volson joining us on a game week as the Bengals play the Kansas City Chiefs for the AFC Championship. We'll podcast that if you missed it later, and our entire show later today. Thanks to Seth Stohs, Mike McFeely, and Cordell Volson. Much more coming up on our news tonight at 6 and 10. Everybody have a great Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow on Hump Day on Hot Mike on WDAY Extra and InForum.com.